Hello everyone. So it's Sunday as well. Sunday again at 4 o'clock, and we are having our weekly stock pick. And as usual, we have our dear trade engineer here with us to actually share with us his analysis about the stock that we are talking about. So let us wait for a couple more seconds for a few more people to stir in, to hear our analysis between Mastercard and Visa. So that is what we are going to cover today. Mastercard or Visa? Which one will you choose, trade engineer? Which one do you think is a better investment for you?
I have both. I have both Visa and Mastercard personally. So I think there is a stand for either one of them. And in fact, if we look at the price chart for both Visa and Mastercard, like they have been more or less similar to each other, I would say. So actually, there is a very fine line, I think, between them. There are some differences, but I would say both stocks are pretty similar to each other. How about you, FINANCIALmissy?
Right, so this is actually what I'm going to cover today to actually sort out the differences between Mastercard and Visa in terms of an investor. Which one is your favorite? Which one is better? Actually, cannot really compare better. Which one will be a better investment and better growth prospect? So this one is what we are going to cover today. If you guys can hear us loud and clear, give us some love, give us some like, and of course, comment in the chat below so that we know that you can hear us loud and clear. And this session, you're going to benefit all of you out there. So hi, thanks Nicholas. Thanks Nicholas for commenting below. So hi, nice to meet you. Nice to have you on this Sunday afternoon at 4 o'clock. Hey, hi Cal. Thanks for commenting as well. Very exciting to have you guys. Hi Ryan. Hi. Yeah. Okay. So awesome. Thank you for being here on time, and I shall not waste all your precious time on a Sunday afternoon. How exciting. I always love Sunday afternoon where I can get to interact with all you guys out there virtually. Someday we can do it in person, currently for now virtually. So what prompted me, right, to actually think of this Visa versus Mastercard comparison, right, is because for the longest time we were wondering, hey, Visa cheaper in terms of stock price, Mastercard more expensive, but what's the difference? It is, as what Nicholas said, it's the two largest card processing company. So which is a better investment? Right. And recently, I've actually trying to pay my insurance premium as well. And then I realized that in certain platform, right, if I am to top up the wallet via Visa, I need to pay surcharge of $1. Seriously. Surcharge of $1. So that prompts me to think, should I is Visa really a good investment company, or should I go for Mastercard instead? Considering the fact that both of these two major companies are retracing and they are going to rebound sooner or later. So which one should I choose? And this is what we are going to cover today as well. I hope that this session will benefit you guys, and I really hope that this session is what you guys want to know as well. Right, so without further ado, let me share my screen. Yeah, my screen is working well today. I'm so happy about that. All right, so today will be a bit different. I'm not actually going to talk about the macroeconomy and what's not, because I actually did it on Friday itself with the Next Level Investor Facebook page. So if you guys want to know about the microeconomy, look at that. And today I'm going to start proper into Visa versus Mastercard. As you guys can see, it's actually a very short presentation for my part. Yeah, so let me just play this part. Okay, so today, as mentioned, for those of you guys who just came in, just streamed in, this is what I'm going to talk about, or rather we are going to talk about today, Visa or Mastercard. Which is a better investment for you guys to consider? right? And first and foremost, before I can start any presentation, need to do disclaimer first, because some of you guys would know that I'm actually in the financial industry. I need to make a very strict disclaimer that this is never intended to be a financial advice. Please, guys, any views, opinions, references, or whatever thing shared is actually my personal view and my own strategy, and it should never be seen as a financial recommendation or advice. You need to know what strategy suits you and act according to your own strategy. Always, at all times, please do your own due diligence, because why? I'm always wrong lah. So your strategy that works for you. That is really, really very important, right? So for those of you guys who just stream in, show us some love, do some like, love, comment, share whatsoever, show us some love, that we know that you guys are enjoying this session, and it will motivate us to do it more, for you guys to share more value and more insight for you guys as well, right? Okay, so surcharge. Just now when I started off this presentation, I'm talking about surcharge. Grab actually, imposes a $1 surcharge on top up via Visa card, and U-Trip, because I was also looking at U-Trips yesterday as well, and I realized that for Visa top up, it's 1.5% surcharge for every top up. Comfort Delpro doesn't discriminate between Visa or Mastercard, but there is a processing fee of 10%. So expensive. So what is the difference between all the credit cards that we have, and which one should we choose? All right. So in the market, there are quite a number of credit cards, and of course, there are other debit paid way. But today, I'm going to just touch on more on the credit payment services, right? Of which we know that the largest one is actually, of course, Visa and Mastercard, and they do have others that includes American Express, as well as was it called Discovery, or is it called Discover? I'm not sure. Not very common in Singapore, so I never really pay much attention. But the two biggest ones are actually Visa and Mastercard. All right, these are the two largest payment processing network in the whole world. All right. And what is so exciting about these two companies, right, is that unlike the other companies, Sean, these two companies don't extend any credit, or they issue card on its own. They do not, okay? They issue their card through collaborations with financial institutions. That's why you never see Visa issuing a Visa card, or Mastercard issuing a Mastercard, but rather the banks, the institutions are issuing this card. Grab is issuing this card, DBS, UOB, OCBC, all these banks, and you see other financial gateways, Crypto.com issuing a Visa card. So this is so exciting. So that means to say, right, their way of earning money is actually very different. Their way of earning money can go via multiple routes. Their way of earning money can be via consumers like us, can be via collaborations as well. All right. So it's so exciting, all this collaborations, co-branding relationship, that they are able to build up a business on its own over so many years. And moving forward, this caused me to think, can I also do some sort of business via co-branding relationship? It sounds like so exciting, right? There's a lot of prospect in this world, and nothing is impossible. All right. That being said, right, it is up to the issuing financial institution that actually sets the payment card's term and conditions, including those fees rewards or other features. It is never the retailers that determines all these terms and conditions. It's never these companies that determines these terms and conditions. All right. So it's always the issuing bank that's responsible for the underwriting and the interest rate structure. And I just stop share. Oh wait, sorry. The interest rate structure and the full development of the rewards programming. Okay, I think I just pressed something. I have no idea what did I just do. Is it back up? Or
Yep,
it's back up.
up.
Sorry. So in the finance industry, right? It's so complicated. I mean, banks can buy over banks. Banks can change their network and whatsoever. But for Visa and Mastercard, because they don't issue these cards directly to us, essentially their business model really changed, isn't it? Isn't it very exciting to know that their business model is pretty solid, that it works regardless of any potential acquisition and what's not. Right? It's so exciting. And how do they actually process all this payment, right? So we always know when it comes to payment gateway, right? You want to talk about demand and supply a bit, but for credit card, we talk a bit differently. We talk about this thing. We talk about demand, the issuers, and the intermediaries. So the credit card companies, Visa and Visa, Mastercard, all those things, they are the intermediaries. Okay, they issue the gateway for the banks to actually process their 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 payments and everything, but the issuer itself are the bank. And who are the consumers? Consumers comes in two tier. The first tier consumers, right, are the merchants. They focus on interchange fees, assessment fees, processing fees, all the fees. Merchants such as, for example, um, the retailer lah. You go shopping, you got people in the shopping center, those merchants, they got the payment processing thingy that people, they're the merchants. They have to pay a fee. And for us, we are the consumers, we are the second tier demand. What we are interested in is very often the interest rate. How much if you never pay the credit card fee, how much are we being charged? Visa, Mastercard, which one has a better reward system? And okay lah, Visa and Mastercard, we normally got the 1 year or 2 year free, annual fee waiver. What about the other years? How much is the annual fee? Right? So I'm pretty sure that many of you guys out there, or even myself, we all are very used to using credit card. If it's not credit card, then debit card. In fact, right, I actually went to research that for credit card, right, credit card are actually being used to make about 28% of all payments last year. So exciting, right? And in fact, in Singapore itself, for what I understand, right, is that Singapore is trying to actually also move to a cashless society whereby by 2050 they want to actually eliminate all checks. Is it possible or not? I do not know. Probably impose some fees on issuance of checks and clearance of checks. But yes, this is the movement of the whole world right now. We want to actually move towards a cashless society. In fact, for myself, you open my wallet, I don't have cash on. If I got cash, it's probably because I'm overseas. I didn't want to actually impose more fees, but for me, I don't really use cash anymore. I got an iPhone. I got an iPhone to actually help me, do my payment. I got an iWatch to actually even go up the MRT. Also, right? So this is where we are moving forward. Right? And of course, this is also showing that credit card are gaining grounds as compared to other cash and other forms of payment. Right? I hope that you guys are with me and you guys are agreeing with me that a lot of times we are trying to move cashless. Okay, whether you guys are more keen to using cash or credit card, it's really a personal decision, personal choice. But at the end of the day, credit card, we can't deny the fact that credit card give us a lot of advantages. The key point that I'm not promoting you guys to use credit card because it really depends on your own earnings, your own financial situations. I'm not promoting any credit card, but I'm just saying that credit card itself, for the general public, has certain advantages. And to use a credit card, you must be very, very disciplined. Credit card allows you to actually delay your payments and what's not. There's actually a credit limit for you to actually leverage on, but you need to know whether you are able to pay it off at the end of the day. Never ever owe credits. I mean, never ever not pay your credit card bill, because why? The interest rate is so high, it's super high, and it's what that makes most people less rich. Right? So we all know that for credit cards we have they normally tie up with tourism, you buy air, you buy You got travel insurance, complimentary travel insurance. You got cashback. You got miles redemption. You got what else? Discounts over certain food, makan places, F&B places, or even flights or hotels. There's a lot of benefits, and I love credit card. But you need to know how to be disciplined. That is very, very important. Never owe credit card bills as much as possible. Try to pay it off, right? You can't use. If you think that you are not that sort of person who can be disciplined in using credit card, then just go for debit lah. And then you don't really have the advantages, but still go cashless unless you prefer cash, right? So let's move on. Okay, so in terms of payment progression, right? For many of us, credit card is really a part of us for our everyday life, right? And Visa card, right, by far is the most common, making up 52.8 of cards in circulation. If you prefer a pie chart, there's a pie chart. If you prefer it in numbers, there's a number for you guys to actually take reference on. Mastercard itself, right, takes up only 32%, and Discover Card and American Express is only 16% on all, right? It doesn't really make much of a difference if you choose Visa or Mastercard as a consumer. Not much of a difference because there's a lot of hidden fees that we don't see. We only do our transaction as per what is being labeled in the retail shops many a time, unless nowadays it's a bit more common to see that different top-ups, they actually have an additional surcharge, and that is what actually makes it a bit more different for consumers. Like myself, recently I want to actually top up. I'm like, got $1 surcharge on Visa. Let me use Mastercard. So I guess as a consumer, that is our only concern. But then you need to know, as an investor, you need to know more than the surface. You need to know what is underneath all these things. All right. And the latest news, right? Actually, it's not very latest. Mastercard and Visa actually announced this already. They want to do a fee hike. And some people also mentioned that, could a fee hike actually make inflation worse? Considering the fact that US inflation is around 8.6% already, could a fee hike make inflation worse? Right? So both Mastercard and Visa actually want to increase their payment, their service charges, right? So that in the payment gateway, their service charge is actually called swipe fees, right? And this swipe fees, right, are normally quite invisible to consumers, because it's all embedded within their processes and what's not. But the movement now in Singapore, I'm not sure about overseas, but the movement now in Singapore is that certain companies, they don't really want to actually swallow these swipe fees, and rather they transfer the additional increase in all these fees to the consumers. Hence, we see like surcharges. Okay, and I'm not sure that whether you guys actually know, there was actually quite a big dispute between Amazon as well as Visa last year, and Amazon actually wants to impose a surcharge fee on Singapore platform. I think Singapore was the first place that actually ruled out the surcharge for Visa payment through Amazon, right? And the latest news is that they managed to actually got some collaboration, a global collaboration, that Amazon Singapore actually removed this surcharge again. So it's all this movement making consumers less keen to actually invest in Visa and have a movement towards Mastercard. This is actually something that we need to actually do more analysis to see how much are they charging and why, and what is the potential growth in both Visa and Mastercard as well. But that being said, right, because the whole economy is actually having inflation, they were saying that increase the fees will actually help with doesn't really affect the inflation. It's because it increase the fees, people buy lesser, and then people, they don't have so much money to buy, so they buy lesser, and then the demand goes down. It helps with inflation. I don't know, but then again, also that things that not everything, there are certain things, consumer products, right, that People just have to buy. And with increasing inflation, and increasing fee, people just have to pay the amount for the staples, especially consumer staples. Could it make inflation worse? It's also a possibility. So there's actually two camps to it, right? But that being said, right, we also need to note that, right, Visa and Mastercard, they are also not that 不近人情 lah, huh? They are also quite nice to the the small businesses as well. Mastercard actually tries to lower its cost for merchants with transaction less than $5, and Visa is also trying to cut its rates by 10% for more than 90% of these small businesses. All right, but then that being said, right, what defines a small businesses can be very narrow, and how much can it help the small businesses is something that we do not know yet, because this plan to actually roll out this increase in fee hike was actually delayed over 2 years because of COVID, and it's only recently being implemented in April 2022. So moving forward, for a recession, we do not know yet, right? So moving forward, now let's look at the processing fee range for the different cards. Mastercard is about 1.55% to 2.6%, whereas for Visa is about 1.43% to 2.4%. All right, this is the latest that I've actually obtained internet. So looking at this processing fee range, right, would people will people be more likely to actually jump into Visa, because Visa, no matter what, is still a bit cheaper at 1.43 to 2.4, whereas Mastercard is 1.55% to 2.6%. Some may say yes, some may say no. I do not know what is the perspective here, but let me just go a bit deeper to see, for this kind of processing fee range, right, that this company imposed, who is the one paying? And what is the difference between Visa and Mastercard in terms of their money making mechanism? How do these companies make money? I think this is something that we all need to know as investors. Knowing how this company makes money will actually tell us the growth potential of this company as well. All right. And let me show you at a glance between the comparison between Mastercard and Visa as well. Visa, in terms of market capitalization, Visa is about 434.9 B, whereas Mastercard is 321.5, which means to say, in terms of market capitalization, Mastercard has a smaller market capitalization. So Mastercard itself is smaller. In terms of net revenue, Visa card is 24.1 B, whereas Mastercard is 18.9 B. Okay, this shows that Mastercard, in terms of net revenue, is not as high as Visa, but in terms of net income, Visa is also 12.3 B, and Mastercard is 8.7 B. All in all, right, if you look into the numbers and all, although it's similarly that the net revenue and the net income of Visa is actually higher than Mastercard, it's actually noticeable that the revenue per share for Mastercard is actually higher than Visa, and as well as the earning per share. All right. And then that being said, the payment volume for Visa card is about 10.4 trillion. The gross dollar volume for Mastercard is actually 7.3 trillion. All right. And all in all, why is there a difference? Why is there a difference in terms of, why is Visa using a payment volume, whereas a Mastercard using a gross dollar volume? It's because of the way they actually processes their money, the way they collect the money from consumers. Okay, that one I'll be touching a bit later on. And the focus for Visa is actually more towards the consumer payment, and whereas Mastercard is more towards the B2B payment, as per the acquisition of companies that they recently acquired as well. In terms of data processing fee, like how the Visa card actually, collecting their money, is actually through small fixed fees charged on a per transaction basis, of which means to say every transaction that is being processed, Visa card charge a fee. Hence, Visa card actually uses a payment volume. Whereas on the other hand, for Mastercard, right, for data processing fee, they charge a small fixed cost per transaction charged to the insurer. Okay, what does it mean? That means the financial institution, the financial institution, the company that issues a card will be charged a fee. So for Visa card, if consumers charge a fee, it translate back to the first tier demand, the merchants. They are going to be charged a fee, and then the Mastercard is the financial institutions which are going to be charged a fee, right? So it's so exciting, because no matter what, regardless of whether inflation or not, people will still have to pay money. People will still have to use these cards to actually, help them to go ahead their day-to-day living. And so, does inflation really affects Visa card or Mastercard? Not really. Inflation doesn't really affect this company, but should there be a recession, people cannot afford. There's a lot of uh, uh, people being unemployed, or there's a lot of default. The banks cannot issue as many cards and what's not. Yes, when there is an impending recession, Visa card and Mastercard will actually be severely affected, but then not for a inflation. Okay, so Mastercard itself, right, actually generates their revenue by charging financial institutions, that gives out all these cards, and how they actually earns money is through domestic and international fee businesses, and through also this thing called switching costs. So there's a lot of costs incurred among the financial institutions to actually decides whether they want to connect with Mastercard, they want to switch Mastercard or not, and that's where they actually generate majority of their profits. And whereas for Visa, the increase in the service height, right, the payment the processing fee height is actually translated back to the consumer through a lot of different avenues, like the service avenues, through the data processing avenues, through the international transaction avenues, and through other avenues as well. So all in all, which one is a better investment right now? I do not know. Still depends on individual. But for me, my personal preference is actually on Mastercard, because as you can see, the growth potential in terms of, regardless of whether it is net revenue, whether it's net income, whether it's based on gross dollar volume, the increment of Mastercard is so much higher than Visa on a year-to-year comparison. The growth potential for Mastercard is higher. But that being said, is Mastercard really that perfect that um there is actually no cons to it? No. We need to also look into the financial statement that actually tells us that Mastercard itself, for this Mastercard company itself, right, their debt to equity ratio is quite high. If I'm not wrong, it's about 1.4 ish, right? So the debt to equity ratio is quite high. But the good thing about it is the free cash flow is also quite significant. So are they able to pay off their debt? Probably so. But as an investor, this is a company that you want to pay a bit more attention on, to see and leverage and to take opportunity on when it is the right time to enter this company. And whether it's the right time to enter this company, I will not be covering. I will actually leave it to the trade engineer to actually elaborate for us. So, trade engineer, for your turn, for you to time to enter Mastercard, or do you think that Visa card is actually a better investment, better time for entry?
All right. Thanks, FINANCIALmissy, for the great for going through in detail for the Visa and Mastercard.
Yo,
Right, so
can't
now
hear
on to
you.
hello. Can you hear me? Hello.
Okay, while waiting for the trade engineer to sort out his audio, maybe guys, for you guys who are out here with us, maybe can let us know which one do you prefer, Mastercard or Visa card, after the analysis of how they actually collects money.
Hello. Can you hear me? Oh, Kelsey,
Oh,
you can hear me.
Kelsey can hear, is it? Can you guys hear the trade engineer? Or is it just me? Or Kelsey's Mastercard.
Ken.
Yeah, same as me. Oh, you guys can hear the trade engineer, is it? Then it's probably just me lah. Then you guys, then
All right.
the trade engineer can carry on with your analysis.
Okay. Let me take over. Yep. So if any point of time you can't hear me, just let me know. Right. So let me first share my screen. All right. Yes. Okay. So here's here's my slide. So basically, right, I'll be covering on the technical aspects of Visa and Mastercard, right? So whether is there opportunity in either stock and which stock is actually better on a technical point of view. Right, but before I begin, right, if you are here with me and you can hear me loud and clear, right, do give this video a like, right, so that and before I actually go into details of Visa and Mastercard, right, just do a brief recap, right, of what we covered last week for this particular company called Raytheon Technologies, right. The ticker symbol is RTX. And if you haven't caught that video, right, you can catch the last week's video for more details of our sharing. Right, so let me quickly do a quick recap, right, of RTX, right, and this was actually posted on my TikTok channel. Right, so there are 6 things to watch, right, that I pointed out last week. First of all was that long-term uptrend line, right, that has been supported and was recently broken sometime on the 16th of June. Right, and we also talk about the 50 SMA and the 200-day SMA, right? And from this chart, you can see that, the 50 SMA is still above the 200-day SMA, but the gap was actually narrowing. Right, and on the daily chart, right, we also pointed out on this short-term downtrend line and the descending channel, and it was shown, right, that the prices were trading below the downtrend line and within this descending channel. So they're still, bearish on the mid-term basis. Right, number 4, the 4th thing we pointed out was the horizontal support, right, and it was testing that first support at 88.4 US dollars. Right, and if it breaks, you're looking at a second support level, slightly lower, 84.8 to 85 US dollars. Right, that is something we pointed out for horizontal support. And for the horizontal resistance, right, we also pointed out, these levels to watch out for, right, if prices make a bounce to the upside. Right, and the MACD, right, that's the last thing we talked about, right? It was negative then, and there was no sign of it becoming less negative as of last week. So let's take a look, right, at what happened, right? What has happened since then, right? But before that, right, just a quick recap on some summary that I talked about last week, right? So we had, these arguments of bull and bear, right? So the bull side, 50 SMA was more than 200-day SMA, and it was at the first horizontal support, right? And it's also approaching that lower channel support. But the bear side, right, the bear side arguments, right, it has broken that long-term uptrend line. The gap between the 50 SMA and 200-day SMA was narrowing, and it is still in a bearish trend. It was still trading below that downtrend line and still within that descending channel. The MACD was also highly negative at that point. So this is what we mentioned for trading, right? What we mentioned was to wait and see, right, to see whether that first horizontal support, or that lower channel line was actually convincingly supported, right? And if so, we can check to see if the MACD shows signs of becoming less negative, right? And we can perform a long trade, right? But if not, we can also place a short trade, but you have to wait till the price hit the upper channel line and is convincingly resisted. Right, so this was what we talked about last week. And let's take a look at the prices for RTX this week, right? So over here, right, this is the updated price chart on the daily time frame, right, for RTX. And once again, we have this same uptrend line, right, that was drawn last week as well. So you can see that although it broke, right, on the 16th and 17th of June, right, but it actually reclaimed this as support, right? It actually bounced back up, right, and it's now currently trading around this support line, right, this around this long-term uptrend line. So this line can still be considered, as a strong level of support because you can see that it actually has reclaimed this support, right, in the subsequent days, and is now trading, right, on this line. Right, and we also have the same short-term downtrend line in the descending channel, right? No change to this, right? It is still trading below the downtrend line and still within that descending channel. Horizontal support, right? You can see that, it has actually successfully bounced up from this first horizontal support, right, at 88.4. So it seems like this horizontal support is still very well supported, right, with a successful bounce in prices so far. And because of that, we didn't see any testing of the second horizontal support level. Right, so it is now approaching, right, the horizontal resistance level, right? Very much so. It's only $1 away from the first resistance, right, at 95.1 to 95.2, based on the last closing price. And it's still some way to go towards the second horizontal resistance, right? It might actually test the upper channel line first. Right, you can see that with the bounce, right, with the bounce last week, right, the MACD has also become less negative, and it is on the brink, right, of making a crossover, right, into the positive region. So if we consolidate everything, right, this is what was mentioned just now, right? If right we actually took into account what I mentioned last week, right, we would have initiated a long position, right, on Monday, because we did see that first horizontal support was convincingly supported, right, and probably we entered about it get up on Monday, right, so we probably have entered slightly higher, about $90.6. Right, and with the based on last closing price on Friday, right, about 94.2, and assuming that you enter at this price, right, you'll be at 4% unrealized profits, right. You probably haven't taken profits yet because it hasn't hit the first horizontal resistance or the upper channel line, right. But you did, you also with a good good amount of unrealized of profits, right. 4% in a week is pretty spectacular. Right, so that is some good money, and I hope some of you might have taken action if you are trading, right, this particular stock. But do take note, that this stock, although there was a bounce, right, it might be only a bounce in the short term. In the longer time frame, it might still be pointing downwards, right? So do take note, right, and don't hold your positions for too long if you are trading this stock. Right. So if you like what I've been sharing so far, right, don't forget to hit that like or love button, right, and let's move on, right, to the main agenda for the day, right, which is, right, the analysis for Visa and Mastercard, right. So let's take a look, right, Visa and Mastercard, right, what are their price charts, right? So over here, we have the weekly chart, right, for Visa, right. You can see that it has moved up quite fair amount, like over the years, and in recent times, it has consolidated quite a fair bit, right. And let's put this side by side with the weekly chart of Mastercard, right. So you look at these two price chart, right, there is hardly any difference in the both of them, right. You can see that even the dips and the corresponding movements, right, they are all pretty similar to each other, right. We are seeing the dips forming at the same time frame, right. Even in recent periods, all these small dips are also similar, right, to Visa, right. So they are pretty similar in terms of the price movement, right, so far for all these years. And let's take a look at some articles talking about these two particular stock, right. So for Visa and Mastercard, right, as what Nicholas mentioned earlier, right, two largest card processing companies. So yeah, Visa and Mastercard, right, they operate the world's biggest electronic payment networks, right. So both of them process card transactions but don't issue credit cards. And with the whole macroeconomic outlook, right, with the fears of interest rates, inflation, right, these two have less exposure to such risks, right. Right, and they are the two largest credit card companies, right? Once again, right? In fact, both of them, we take a look at some statistics, right? It has accounted for 64% of the global consumer financing market, right? Almost half of all Americans owns at least one Visa card, right? That is quite, substantial, right? And that's only Americans, right? In the world, substantial amount of people also owns Visa or Mastercard. Right, so you look, in detail for Visa, right? Visa is, a global company, as we all know, right? it is actually, if you compare it with Mastercard, it is actually slightly larger. It is slightly larger, like based on the market cap, the market capitalization, right? It is, about 420 billion, right, versus Mastercard about 336. So it's slightly bigger, right? Slightly bigger than Mastercard. Right, and Visa also takes the lion's share, right, of general purpose credit card transactions, right, about 40.2%. Right, Visa also runs the world's most expensive, right, payment system called VisaNet. Right, I'm sure all you have heard of it. Right, and Visa is able to easily scale operation wherever the opportunity abounds, right, because it is the biggest player, right, in the payment processing sector. Right, and there is some good news, right, in recent times as well, right. It has recently partnered with this company, right, Coinbase, right, the crypto platform, right. So it is expanding to crypto services as well, right, and it is in fact with the pandemic taking a backseat nowadays, right, and more people traveling and more people traveling and spending, right. Visa might actually benefit, right, as what he mentioned here, right, increased international travel and rising consumer activity. And we look at the financial statements, right, Visa has a solid year, right. 2021 was a solid year for it, even though there was a pandemic, right. Net income was up 11%, right, and it has this new share repurchase program. Right, and let's look at Mastercard, right. Right, Mastercard, right, actually doesn't really doesn't actually extend its own credit or issue its own cards, right. In fact, most of the money, right, is made from service and processing fees. So this setup, right, actually helps it to de-risk its exposure to bad customers, right. But there is one particular risk, right, that it is facing right now, and that is due to its suspension of its Russian operations, right. And in fact, the CEO mentioned that this is a substantial important part of its business, right. But there is some welcome news for Mastercard, right. The business increased its first quarter gross dollar volume by 70%, right. Its net revenue CAGR, right, is also to be expected to be high, right. But in terms of valuation, right, valuation wise, Mastercard is more expensive, right. If you look at the price to sales, right, price to sales, Mastercard is around 26, right, while Visa, right, is actually lower at about 17, right. So that is something to take note of as well. Right, so you can see, right, there is some differences, right, some differences between the two companies, in terms of all these points that I mentioned, right. Visa appears to be growing its net revenue on a quarter by quarter basis, right, and there's a number of growth opportunities on the horizon too, right. But Mastercard, right, it has lost one important market, right, Russia, and its valuation is quite expensive, right. And if you look at dividends, right, dividends wise, both are offering very low dividends, right. So that's not something you want to buy if you are going for a dividend company. Right, but there is, this is compensated by attractive payout ratio, about 20% for both companies. The dividend per share growth rate is also excellent, right? Actually, there's not much difference between the two. Visa is 9.66%, Mastercard is marginally higher, 9.68%. Right, but the thing, right, that distinguish both of them, right, is this very key matrix, right, which is called that return on common equity, right? So what is this return of common equity ratio, right? This return of common equity, right, or ROCE for short, right, indicates, right, that whether a business is generating big profits, right, from the investment it's making with its equity capital. So let's take a look at the ROCE ratios, right, for both Visa and Mastercard, right? So Visa ROCE is 40%, right? Mastercard is a lot higher, 142%. Right, so this is something you might want to take note, right? So if it's just based on ROCE alone, right, Mastercard might win, right, might trump Visa by a huge margin, right? So that is the key difference, right? That is the key difference, right? If you are investing, take note of this as well, right? Of this particular matrix, right? But of course, you have to bear in mind, right, that Mastercard also has, all those negative points and risks that was mentioned earlier, right? In the near term, right? In the short term, right? But its long-term cash distribution prospect, right, might be the catalyst, right? If you are convinced that it is going to stay that way in the time to come. Right, so that is just some fundamental news, some fundamental analysis, right, for the both of them, right, both stocks. But to to delve or the deep dive into these two stocks further, right, we do have to look at the technicals, right, to see what is the difference, right, or what the technicals tell us. Right, but before I delve further, right, if you like what I've been sharing so far, right, don't forget to hit that like or love button. Right, and now let's check out the price chart, right, for both Visa and Mastercard for more details. Right, so first of all, right, let's look at Visa. Right, so this is Visa on the weekly time frame. Right, so over here, right, I have put in the 50 SMA as well as the 200 SMA. And we can see something very interesting down here, right? So you have focused on the 200 SMA, right, on the weekly chart. Right, you can see that prices has been testing this 200 SMA multiple times, one time here, two times here, and very recently here, three times, right? So this is clearly a quite strong support, right, on the weekly time frame, right, in recent times. So we might actually see a bounce up at this level, right? So that is something to take note of. Right, and if we zoom in on a shorter time frame, on the daily time frame, right, and also draw that 50 SMA and 200 SMA, we can see that the 50 SMA is still below that 200-day SMA, right? In fact, it has been below for quite some time already, right? And that actually indicates, right, that it is still bearish in the intermediate to long term. Right, and we look at horizontal support, right? Here I sketch out the support zone, right? Between $186 to $190, right? And you can see, right, that it has also successfully bounced off this region quite a number of times. In fact, 4 times to be exact, right? So 1 time here, 2 times here, 3 times here, and very recently, right, 4th time was here. So once again, right, this is also a strong support zone, right? And the fact that it has bounced off this region so many times indicates, right, that there is quite a substantial support at this level. Right, but similar in daily time frame, you can see that I also sketch out this downtrend line and the descending channel, right? So you can see the prices are still trading below the downtrend line, right? And also trading within this descending channel, right? So technically, right, it is still bearish in the intermediate term, right? Because it's still forming that lower highs in price and lower lows in prices, right? Right, but if it makes a bounce to the upside, right, these are some of the resistance zone that we could be watching out for. Right, so the first resistance zone corresponds to this bottom 2 horizontal levels, right, about 213 to 218 $. Right, and the second resistance zone is slightly higher by these 2 upper lines, right, 223 to 229. Right, so these are the levels to watch out for, right, if the price actually makes a bounce to the upside, right? And you can see that last Friday actually was quite a green candle, so it might really make a bounce to these particular levels. And something positive you can see recently as well, right, is that on the daily chart as well, RSI and MACD are also turning up, right? You can see RSI is turning up, MACD is just about to make a crossover, right? So that both of them are indicating an impending bounce to the upside, right? So that is something that we can watch out for. Right, so in summary, right, there are both bull and bear arguments once again for this stock. Bull side of things, right, Visa is still supported by 200 SMA on the weekly chart, right? That's a strong support. It also has another strong support in the daily time frame, right? That horizontal support zone, about 186 to 190 US dollars, right? It bounced off about 4 times, right? The RSI and MACD are also turning up on the daily chart. Right, but on the bear side of things, right, this is more on the intermediate term, right? 50 SMA is still below that 200 SMA and still trading below that downtrend line and within that descending channel. Right, so what should you do for trading? Right, at this point, once again, I'd like to emphasize that this is just my own opinion, right? Please do your own due diligence before entering this stock. So, it depends on the time frame, right? If you are a short-term trader, right, you can consider, placing a trade to capture that bounce, right? That bounce up in the short term, right? So that is what I'm suggesting here, right? You can place a short-term long trade, cut loss, slightly below that strong support zone, about 185 US dollars, and take profit, somewhere at that first resistance zone, right? About 213 US dollar or around that downtrend line. Right, but you can also do a short entry, but perhaps you want to wait, till it hits the resistance level, which is corresponding to that upper channel line or that downtrend line, right? And if you cannot convincingly break it, right, it might be resisted, right? And we can enter a short trade. But of course, we want to do some, see some confirmation signs like MACD showing signs of becoming more negative, right? Right, and you can perform a short trade, right, and set the stop loss slightly above the upper trend line or the downtrend line. Right, so that's for Visa, right, and for Mastercard, right, for Mastercard, it as the chart is very similar, right, a conclusion might be pretty similar, but let's delve deep into Mastercard, right, to see whether there's any differences that I can draw from it. So first of all, right, this is a Mastercard on the weekly time frame. And once again, right, I also put in the 50 SMA and the 200 SMA on the weekly chart. Right, and you can see, right, unlike Visa, right, where the price was testing at 200 SMA, multiple times on the weekly chart, for Mastercard, right, it has just tested the 200 SMA, right. It has previously not tested it. It has only just tested it. So it's only one time here. Right, but I can see that this one time here was enough. The next week, right, it actually went up, right? So it actually bounced up from this 200 SMA. Right, so it's still a good support, right? It didn't test as many times, but it is, seems like it's still a good support. Right, and if you zoom in on the daily time frame for Mastercard, right, this is also the 50 SMA and the 200 SMA. Right, you can see that the 50 SMA is not that far below the 200 SMA, right? In fact, there was a period of time it actually went up, right, before it come back down, unlike Visa, right? So it's not as negative, right? The gap is not as big as Visa, right? But nevertheless, the 50 SMA is still slightly less than the 200 SMA. So we could still be bearish, right, for this stock in the intermediate to long-term basis. Right, support zone, right? So this is the horizontal support zone for Mastercard as well. And we can see, right, this is quite similar to the Visa, except at there are different prices, right? So this strong support region, right, is around 303 to 312 US dollars, right? And it, similarly as Visa, it has been tested numerous times. In fact, we count number of times here is about 5 times, right? About 1, 2, 3, 4, and recently the fifth time was here. So we actually tested this more times than Visa, right? Right, and the downtrend line and the descending channel, right? It is still trading below the downtrend line, right, and still within that descending channel. So overall, it's still bearish in the intermediate to long-term basis, right? Because the price is still forming lower highs and lower lows, right? Resistance zones, right? So this is the levels to watch out for, right? If it bounce to the upside. First resistance zone about 344 to 350. Second resistance zone about 364 to 368 US dollars. So these are levels, right? If to watch out if the price actually makes a bounce. Right, and the RSI and MACD, right? So likewise, you can see that Mastercard RSI and MACD on the daily chart is also turning up, right? very recently. So that also indicates that there could be that impending bounce to the upside. Right, so to summarize, right, for Mastercard, right, the bull side of things, it is supported by the 200 SMA on the weekly chart, right, one time as compared to Visa's multiple times, but nevertheless, it is still supported. It has successfully bounced off the strong support zone on the daily chart, like 4 times, actually 5 times, right? RSI and MACD are turning up on the daily chart as well. But on the bear side of things, like same as Visa, 50 SMA is still slightly below the 200 SMA. Right, the gap is not as big, but it's still below, and it's still trading below the downtrend line within the descending channel, right? Same as Visa. So for trading wise, right, for Mastercard, it is quite a similar strategy, right? We can place a short-term long trade, right, to capture that bounce, right, and cut loss below that strong support zone. Right, you can take profit at that first resistance zone about $344. You can also short it, right, but perhaps you want to wait till it hits the upper trend line and downtrend line, and it is proven to be convincingly resisted, right? And for the added confirmation, we want to see the MACD showing signs of becoming more negative, right? And you can place a short trade, right, for Mastercard. Right, so that is something I'd like to mention for Mastercard and Visa. So in terms of technical wise, there is some minor differences here and there between Visa and Mastercard, right? But by and large, the strategy is similar, right? Because we have seen that the differences are not too big, right? The general direction is still the same. So yeah, so basically, they might still mirror each other in time to come. Right, and with that, I conclude my technical analysis for both Visa and Mastercard. Right, and if you actually like our sharing for today, right, as always, don't forget to click that like or love button, right, and consider sharing this video, right, so that more people can benefit from our sharing. Right, and as you know already, we have our social media pages here, right? You can follow us if you haven't already done so. Right, and you can leave a comment, right, as what you have done so far throughout this session, right, on what you think, right, and suggest the next stock, for our next sharing, if you have any ideas of what you want us to share. Right, and we have this every Sunday, just as a reminder again to all of you, right, if in case some of you are tuning in for the live for the first time, right, so next week, right, it'll be on my Facebook page. And before I end off, right, the session for today, right, I'll be talking about another topic for cryptocurrency tonight, right, at 9:30 p.m. and particularly whether this is the bottom for crypto, right? So it would be on the Cryptoverse NFT Investor Facebook group, right? So if you're free, you can tune in and take a look to see what's my analysis for crypto for these recent times. Right, and with that, right, I hope FINANCIAlmissy can hear me now. Yeah, so with that, I come to the end, right, of this session, and let's let me hand back the time to FINANCIAlmissy, right? To see whether there's anything else you'd like to say. Right, over to you, FINANCIAlmissy.
Right. Thank you for sharing. For you guys out there, I hope that you guys got a lot of value from both myself, my take on Visa versus Mastercard, and also from the trade engineer's perspective of whether it's actually the right type of entry. Stay safe out there. The market is very volatile. Always do your own due diligence, and we will see you next week. Bye, guys.
Yep. Bye. See you guys.